B1 family, welcome to Blacklogic. This evening, we're going to dive deep into a conversation that a lot of folks tiptoe around. Usually they just tiptoe around it. They don't want to have these conversations. They mostly post clips on TikTok and Snapchat and Facebook and YouTube. But it's something that Black Americans, descendants of enslaved Black Americans need to hear. And that is the uncomfortable truth about the tension between Black immigrants and Black Americans. Specifically, the way that Black immigrants often despise Black Americans while simultaneously reaping the benefits of a country built off of our ancestors' blood and their relentless fight for freedom. So let's start with the reality. When Black immigrants come to America, whether they're from Africa, the Caribbean, the UK, or other parts of the world, many come in search of the American dream. But here's the kicker. They often get a head start, receiving free benefits like housing support, food assistance, transportation aid, and educational resources. Many immigrants benefit from state, federal, and local policies designed to provide softer landing, while Black Americans who built this nation and have been here before the United States was even called the United States are left struggling to access the same resources. But before we go any deeper, family, let's build a premise. Let's build a foundation. We're looking at statistics from pewresearch.org. And we're looking how the increase of the Black immigrant population is growing very significantly. They're stating by the year of 2060, there will be roughly 10 million Black immigrants in America coming from Jamaica, Nigeria, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos, you name it, family. They're coming from everywhere to flock to the United States of America. And we already see a certain level of vitriol for some of the tether class out of these Black immigrant groups. But I want to just share a couple of information here. Again, we're going to slow roll this one, family. We're not going to speed through this one. A sizable share of Black Americans have recent immigrant connections. In addition to the 12% of Black people who were born in a foreign country themselves, roughly 9% are second generation Americans, meaning they were born in the US and have at least one foreign born parent. Combined, these two groups account for 21% of the overall Black population compared to the share among Americans overall. I was stating maybe around 6 to 8 months ago that there was roughly 50 foundational Black Americans. Well, after finding out very vital information to our population, that we're roughly anywhere between around 43 to 45 million, because there are some Black immigrants that consider themselves FBA because they've been in the country, maybe their second generation. Okay. So again, we have to cut the fat. We have to delineate. And this is not to be divisive. Okay. Because we have people in the Black diaspora who are on code with Black Americans, but we have a large percentage of them, not the majority, but a large percentage of them who are off code and they're part of the quote unquote tether class. So again, we have to call these things out. We have to make sense of these things, or why we're having these conversations, why we're having these differences, and why some things may seem divisive. Okay. Black immigrants, 58% arrived in the US after 2000. Roughly 3 in 10, 31% came to the US between 2010 and 2019. And a little over a quarter immigrated between 2000 and 2009 among all US immigrants by comparison. So their numbers are going quite significant, family. Let's look at this very closely. So these are African immigrants, which represent a very large share of the Black immigrants' arrival when it comes to 2019. This is during COVID, okay? They were still coming over here, but because of Donald Trump's border policies that basically stopped illegal and legal immigration for quite some time, those numbers slowed. But nonetheless, once Joe Biden and Kamala Harris got into office, those numbers exploded significantly. But as we see here, we see U.S. immigrants at 51%, and they're talking about every other immigrant class that are non-Black at 51%. Now look at the U.S. Black immigrants at 43%. That is very significant when you're talking about people who are from China, from India, from Guatemala, from Mexico, from all these other non-Black countries. They're only 8% behind 51%. And then they break it down by what region, what continent, what area that they're from. Among Black immigrants born in Africa, 25%, South America, 54%, Caribbean, 56%, and then Central America and or Mexico, 59%. And if you guys are not familiar, there are Black Mexicans, there are Black South Americans, etc. Okay? The reason why we need to build this because we need to understand where are all these people coming from. How do they consider themselves Black, Latino, Dominican, this or that? But it's very important because when Black immigrants come to America, whether they're from Africa, the Caribbean, or other parts of the world, yeah, they're coming for the American dream. But what a lot of us don't understand as Black Americans, which you have to do your research, a lot of these immigrants that come over here, whether they Black or non-Black, get support from the local, state, and federal governments for housing, food, transportation, and educational resources. Okay? Because many immigrants benefit from state and federal policies designed for them to make it in America, for them to be successful in America. Who built this nation? So when we look at the Refugee Act of 1980, which give immigrants both documented and undocumented or illegal and both legal access to federal and state programs like TAF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which is basically food stamps through the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and even Medicaid. I want you to think about that, family. They qualify for TAF, which is temporary assistance, that's money. They qualify for SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which is another form of money, mostly like in an EBT card, and Medicaid. That is your tax dollars. Those are Black American tax dollars, as well as other Americans, but we're going to keep it Black here. Those are Black American tax dollars. Programs that you contribute to, yet are often denied from benefiting from the same system at the same rate. So let's look at education over here, family. Let's look at education. It states here, higher education achievement is a well-known path towards better work opportunities and greater income. Nationwide, 30% of Black immigrants aged 25 and older were college graduates in 2019, compared to only 21% of US-born Black residents. Now, these numbers can be miscued just a little because they may group in second-generation immigrants who, quote unquote, may have their U.S. citizenship. Thus, they are Black Americans, but now foundational Black Americans. Okay, so we can take a percent off here and there. It states that in New York and Miami, the top destination for Black immigrants, the shares of graduates among Black residents tend to be lower than elsewhere, and about the same regardless of the nativity. However, rates are much higher in the Washington and Atlanta areas, where more Black immigrants are African and exceed those of US born Black residents. So as we're looking at this bar graph here, we see purple is for Black Americans and the blue is for Black immigrants. So we're only 1% higher when it comes to degrees, and this is most likely bachelor's degrees. 1 point higher when it comes to New York, 1 point higher when it comes to Miami, but when it comes to Washington, D.C., my hometown, they are 9% greater as far as degrees are concerned. When it comes to Boston, and Boston don't really have a lot of, even though Boston tend to lean liberal or progressive liberal, however you want to label it, family, they don't have a lot of policies to support immigrants because Boston is majority white, and we know the energy that a lot of people receive when you're not the palm-colored people in Boston. So we know what that's about. Then also in Atlanta, we're looking at a 7% difference in Black immigrants having more degrees than Black Americans. So why is that? The big question is this: why is that Black immigrants have more degrees, obtain degrees faster than Black Americans? So I had to do some little bit of research here, and this is coming from bigfuture.collegeboard.org, and it says for undocumented student questions and answers about paying for college. So we know we have to pay for college out of pocket. We may have to get one of those federal loans, was it Mary Fay or Fannie Mae loans, that essentially we have to pay back. But I want you to see this, family. Do college offer financial aid or scholarship to undocumented students? The answer is yes. So think about this. You are an illegal immigrant inside the country, and our government is going to provide scholarships. It says yes, some do. Private colleges often have special funds available. Another question, am I eligible for scholarship? Yes, you need to find scholarships you qualify for. So they have money that are given to illegal and legal immigrants to come over and benefit from, more so than you qualifying as a Black American. Okay, they say here that they can't get financial aid because you get federal financial aid unless you're a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. Can I get a Pell Grant? No, Pell Grants are a type of federal financial aid. Can I get financial aid from my state? It depends on where you live. Tim Walls, like Minnesota. Some states often financial aid to undocumented students and some don't. If your state does offer financial aid to undocumented students, you may have to fill out a financial aid application. That's all you have to do to get the money. That's all you have to do to get the money, family. So when I look at the data that is displayed in this bar graph of them having more degrees than us, then I look at the support that they get from the federal and state and local governments. Let's take it a bit further because we talked about TAF and we also talk about SNAP and we talk about Medicaid, which is paid by Black Americans' tax dollars. And if you're just joining me here, when I'm talking, we're keeping it Black here, family, but we also know that all Americans pay taxes to a certain degree, and all American taxes are paying for illegal immigrants to receive food support, housing support, and all other sorts of benefits and support. Now, I want you to take a look at this very, very quickly. Do illegal immigrants receive Social Security? Now, we know we've been having a large problem. The conversation's been going on for the past 10 years or so for Generation X, Millennials, Generation Y, Z, all these generations. Will there be funds left for Social Security? The money that they take out of your check, each and every paycheck, and put it to this fund to supplement your bills as you retire at the age of 62, 65, up to the age of 70, where you can start receiving Social Security to help you live a better life in your elderly years. So are illegal immigrants or non-citizens or qualified aliens qualify to get this money? Well, this is from SSA.gov. A non-citizen, also called an alien for immigration purposes, may be eligible for SSI if he or she meets the requirements of the laws for non-citizens. That went into effect on August 22nd in 96. Beginning August 22nd of 96, most non-citizens meet two requirements to be potentially eligible for SSI. Now, they have to be a qualified alien and meet a condition that allows qualified aliens to get SSI. Okay, a qualified alien. So who's a qualified alien? That's your question. These are the 7 categories of qualified aliens. You are a qualified alien. And here's the kicker. You are in one, just one, not 2, not 3, just one of these categories. Lawfully admitted for permanent residence. So with the Democratic open border policies, they have been legally permitted, right? Because we have granted asylum and refugee status, so they are lawfully and legally permitted, thus they can have SSI. Now, tell me if I'm speaking to conjecture or rhetoric, or am I stating the law as we see it? Okay. Number 2, granted conditional entry under section blah, blah, blah. Paroled into the U.S. under section 212. Paroled into the United States. Paroled. Does that mean that when they came inside the U.S. illegally and they wrote out some paperwork of who they were, where they from, where they come from, were they paroled inside the U.S.? Interesting enough. What about all of those quote unquote asylum seekers? Those refugees, refugee asylum seekers, one of the same, two sides of the same coin. But look at it like this, family. Refugee admitted to the U.S. under Section 207, admitted to the United States. Now, we understand that a lot of these illegal immigrants are what? They are economic asylum seekers. They're not coming over here running from war and persecution from their countries, that they're seeking political asylum. No, they are here for economic opportunities. Number 5, granted asylum under Section 208. Again, same coin. Now, this is one that's very tricky. Deportation is being withheld under Section 243 as an effect before April 1st, 97, or removal is being withheld under section. So when you just think about that, and you go into these sections, which you'll soon find out, if you are in a holding pattern in the United States of America as a Black illegal immigrant, you can receive SSI. Now, I know I'm helping somebody right here, family, because I'm spilling the beans. This is sometimes where you may not know the information and they may know the information. Number 7, a Cuban or a Haitian entrant, as defined in Section 501 of the Refugee Education Assistance Act. Status that is to be treated as a Cuban Haitian. So basically, if you're Dominican, guys, just come on over to the U.S. and say that you're Cuban, right? There's Black Cubans, there's white Cubans, there's brown Cubans, right? Even if you're from France and you're not doing so well, just come through the southern border and say you're Haitian. And this is coming from SSA.gov, family. This is from the federal government. Then they had to not only double down, they triple down. They said, in addition, you can be deemed qualified alien if under certain circumstances, right, you, meaning you, or your child, or your parent was subjected to battery or extreme cruelty by a family member while in the United States. So the only thing they have to say, I came over here from Nigeria, I came over here from Jamaica, I came over here from South Africa, I came over here from Uganda, I came over here from Honduras, and my family member beat my ass. So can I please have some of our Social Security income? And they will get it. This is probably one of the reasons why you see a lot of assaults happening in the illegal immigrant communities now, family. because there's just tons of money that the American government is literally forking out. Because we've got the Refugee Act of 1980, which give immigrants, both documented and undocumented, access to federal and state programs. As I stated before, TAF, SNAP, Medicaid, SSI, and those are your tax dollars. Then we got state level programs like California Cash Assistance Program from immigrants, also known as CAPA or CAPI, which provides financial aid to elderly immigrants and those with disability. Isn't your mother elderly? Isn't your father elderly? Don't they suffer from certain disability, whether they be physical and or mental? They have a cash assistance program. They also receive free housing assistance and job placement services under different state programs across the country, especially in states like New York, California, and Illinois. That's why they're having such a big problem in Chicago. Even in Section 8 housing, originally created to help low-income Americans, again, to help low-income Americans, ends up disproportionately benefiting Black immigrant families in Black neighborhoods, while Black Americans face longer waiting lists and more hurdles. You know, and here's what we have to understand. We have a lot of turncoats and traitors within the foundational Black American family, or those who pretend to be as such, to be FBA, those who are descendants of enslaved Africans that came over here almost 1,000 years ago, where there was an ethnogenesis of different African groups mixed and mastered together to create a foundational Black American who have created their own culture. We still have tethers. We still have turncoats and traitors. And matter of fact, let's listen to one.
Black immigrants are more successful than Black Americans because they outwork us. I said it. Now, I have seen this over and over and over again. If I'm dealing with a Black person in any sort of business capacity, you're dealing with people who do not show up on time. You're dealing with people who do not treat their business like a business. They treat it as like, you know, some side project and, oh, you know, you just broke, man. And, you know, I don't have to give you good service. I don't have to be on time. I don't have to show up like a true professional. Now, Black immigrant business owners are very different. They are very hardworking. They show up on time. They come to America with the mentality that they're going to come here and work and build something, whereas Black Americans, and yes, I am 100% foundational Black American from slaves, okay? That is how Black American I am, and I will tell you.
Okay, maybe it's me, family. Maybe it's me, but, and this has nothing to do with the video, but does he seem a little zesty? He has a little sis in him, a little lisp in him. You know, maybe his significant other is a Black immigrant. I don't know, family. That definitely is conjecture, okay?
That Black Americans have a very entitled mindset. We're always waiting on somebody to do something for us. We are always waiting on government handouts. We are always waiting on somebody to do something for us. And when we get positions and when we actually have businesses, have companies or whatever, 9 times out of 10, they're run terribly. I have had some of the most terrible experiences that you can ever have when deciding to deal with Black American business owners. Now, you know, don't hate the player, hate the game. Don't hate me for saying what is really real.
So again, I guess my question to this guy here, and I'm not getting into his personal life, is if that is the case, what does that say about you? Because you just made a large generalization of Black Americans. Now, let me tell you this. If I went to some of these African countries, and unfortunately, majority of the businesses in these countries are not ran and or operated or owned by them, by the native people of those countries, unfortunately, because of colonization. But see, that's one thing that you and I understand, family. But when they come over here, they despise Black Americans because we have some Black Americans with a little sugar in the tank sometimes, not all, because we do have riders who like to lean to the right, which is fine. Because we're never going to forget one of our most powerful brothers, James Baldwin, who was part of that community as well. So shout out goes to James Baldwin, rest in power, brother. But nonetheless, we have people like this who makes large generalization that gives Black immigrant tethers the juice, the power, and the vitriol to spew white supremacist ideology rhetoric. It's people like this mofo right here. This is what we're dealing with.
I feel like a lot of Africans don't understand the African American experience. I never knew until I came here and started.
Okay, you heard what this brother said. Now, this is a very powerful piece because I wish we had our Black immigrant brothers and sisters on code like these guys right here, having real conversations about I never knew what Black Americans went through. I never know what Black Americans are still going through today. This is the beginning of Black immigrants being on code. This is the beginning of you stop spewing white supremacist ideology. This is the beginning to understand who and what we are and what we have come from and what we are dealing with and why we have implemented an executive order of delineation throughout the Black Americans. So I want you guys to listen to this.
Started learning the history of what happened here, like all the way from the end of slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining, the civil rights movement, the pipeline from the school to prison pipeline,
the prison industrial complex.
Yeah, like all of this stuff. I don't think Africans have an idea of all these things that are put against African Americans to become successful. Like even the Africans that are brought here, we're brought and we're put into like nicer neighborhoods. They don't put us in Southside Chicago in like the worst neighborhoods where you literally have to get a gun to survive.
My family members in the US, when they go to the bank to take a loan, they will be given a loan. But when their African American friends go there, to take the same loan, they will deny them, from having a loan. When it also...
Family, are you understanding what these Black immigrants are saying? They're spilling the beans. They're telling the truth. Now, I know we're gonna have some haters. We're gonna have some people who are adjacent to the white supremacist society. Well, they got better credit scores than you guys. That's why. No, family. I have over 800 credit score. I won't tell you my net worth, but I've been denied. And I have a good old American name. But these guys are letting you know that it's different for them in America. Why do you think that Black immigrants are coming to America and stating opportunities? The opportunity word is much loaded than you think. They're coming over here and they can take out loans. Thus, that is why you see so many goddamn Nigerian businesses. That's why you see so many goddamn Ethiopian businesses. That is why you see so many goddamn Somalian businesses. That's why. Let them spill the beans again.
American friends go there, to take the same loan. They will deny them, from having a loan. When it also comes to jobs, for example, just to apply some jobs, my African family, with African passport, they will give them some jobs, and then the African Americans, they know they will not be able to have the same jobs. So God bless this brother here for explaining these things, to the Africans who thinks that they are in the United States and they are better than African Americans.
And I know what they're going to say. The reason why they give the Black immigrant more jobs than the Black American is because the Black immigrant gonna come over to America and they're going to work harder and they're going to do this and we are entitled and we're this. How the hell are we entitled? We have fought for every single thing. Our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents have fought for every single thing that we have today. They come over on a plane, on a ship, by land, on feet. However, oh, you need a loan? You trying to open up a restaurant? Here you go, my black African brother. Here a little nigga on the way out too. Let me hit you and say nigga on the way out. This is why the executive order of delineation is a great thing. And it's not to be divisive between the black. As I told you, these guys are on code because they are spilling the truth. They are telling the truth. Instead of, we have some of our own foundational black Americans say, well, I don't want no handout. I was about to say the N-word again and again and again. But Negro, please. Nothing is a handout if your forefathers was owed money and that bill and that debt is still due. It's not a handout. Pay what you owe.
You know, because of their hard works, they are there. As he said, you know, from the time of slavery all the way to the Jim Crow era in the United States, I mean, not only that, but even today, the way the system is built, you know, you as an African with an African passport, you know, the system will favor you than the African Americans. Because of why? The system knows that first, you are not American, you know, and then not only that, but they can also put a pressure on you, you know, just like at your workplace, you know, to do certain things, even you don't want to. Why? Because you do not want to lose your green card, or you do not want to lose your job, you know, which might just put you at the risk of deporting you back to your home country. I have seen a lot of Africans, you know, on the internet talking about African Americans being lazy, being this, being that, you know. I mean, if you think because of your hard work you are in the US, why don't you sit your ass in Africa, you know, to work hard to get.
Family, did you hear him? He said, if you work so goddamn hard, why didn't you work in Africa? Did you hear this, brother? He got a full accent and all. He said, if you was working so hard, why didn't you build opportunities in your own country? Why didn't you work hard in your own country? Why didn't you do it there? Let me see who I got in the room. I got my good brother, Jermaine Anderson. Thank you for moderating, sir. MD Williams, Volvo, I see you. Lois Knowles, D from NYC, Mr. G. Sweetheart, I'm just gonna call you 22. I do not know how to pronounce that. I got Bad in the room as well. I appreciate the donation, brother. I appreciate Mr. G said, are Clarence Thomas sold immigrants? I have no clue. I have no clue. But I can tell you, if they are foundational black Americans, they're definitely traitors. Okay. Let's see. And I don't know how to pronounce your name. They're like a Nigerian name. This is an immigrant work ethic is a very real thing. It's the Hispanic immigrants who are replacing FBAs, not Africans. Lord have mercy. Well, let me break something down to you. And this is not to be disrespectful. Chukwuwu. I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I won't try. If you believe that Hispanics are replacing Black Americans and not Africans, then you must not know about a certain word that businesses have within their HR department. It's called demographics. It's called demographics. Even though that DEI is not a real thing anymore, some organizations still have policies, still have SOPs, well, not SOPs, most likely policies that's dealing with diversity. And with diversity, they do count how many white, how many Hispanics, how many Black, etc. So if you don't think that Africans and Caribbeans and other Black diaspora groups are coming over and essentially decreasing the amount of opportunities for Black Americans, then you don't know about demographics, then you don't know about diversity in the workplace, because they will count you, Nigerian or Kenyan or whatever country you're from, and they will count me as the same because we're both Black. I don't know why immigrants have a problem with this, because we already know what you're going to say. You're going to say this. Let me help you. One, your country is corrupt. Your politicians are corrupt. They are taking the money that the country is generating and putting in their own pockets. That's number one. Then number two, there's no opportunities in your country. See, here's the thing about landmass. America is a landmass and Africa is a landmass. North America is a landmass and the Caribbean are land masses. So if we both have land, how do you think things got built? because people stood where they were and they start to innovate and elevate and invent and create. You create opportunities where you are. That's why you don't see too many Japanese people in America. And the only reason why there's a lot of Chinese over here, because China is fucking overpopulated. The reason why you see so many Indian people over here, for the same reason as all the other black immigrants. Not only the colorism that is in India, but they're an overpopulated country where all of these people are getting these IT degrees and certifications and licenses, but they don't have the opportunities. The same way as when you call into a business, you're either talking to a person from India or a person from the Philippines. Because America outsourced a lot of jobs because they do not want to pay Americans fair wages, not even minimum wage. Because if you're in your country and I want to set up a call center to handle IT problems or handle maybe you're trying to do a return or a refund, and I have to pay the black American $12, I got to pay him at least minimum wage. But if I outsource these jobs to Nigeria, if I outsource these jobs to the Philippines or India, I only got to pay you $4 an hour. So that was a quick class to my Nigerian friend who put this comment in the chat. I'll let the video continue. I'm going to back it up just a smidgen.
Talking about African Americans being lazy, being this, being that, I mean, if you think because of your hard work you are in the US, why don't you sit your ass in Africa, to work hard to get what you are having right now in the US? But no, because you can't make it in Africa because of the way our system back home here also is not enough jobs for people, not only jobs, but you, for example, who is from a minority family, let's start with, you will not have the chance, to be able to do something here because it's not about what you know, it's about whom you know. The same system is in the United States put in place for the African Americans, So I want to see all of you black Americans. I want to see all of you black Africans, to work together, to know that we are all families, I am Africans. And then it hurts me a lot that by seeing Africans on the internet in the United States, trying to bully the African Americans, taking them as lazies, or taking them as they don't work. But this is what happens, if you do not learn your history, And not only that, you also think that white man is God, Trust me, so many of African people are brainwashed to believe in this, Sadly, we even have leaders right now in power who are working.
That's correct, brother. They don't come over here and say all the things that foundational black Americans have done, all the sacrifices we have made, all the marches, all the massacres we've been through, whether it be civil rights, whether it be marching for voting rights, for equal opportunities in America. They don't give us tribute to that. They don't give us honor for that, brother. You are absolutely right. Before you start spewing your negativity on black Americans, understand our history and understand our present. He's speaking powerful right now. He said, why didn't you work hard in your other country? And this is one of the black immigrant brothers. And to the guy in the chat, where is he at? He said that my mother is a black American and my father is Nigerian. I wonder whose side he leans to the most. I guess the proof is in the pudding. Because see, when both of your names or whatever name you have labeled yourself tells a lot of foundational black Americans who both parents are foundational, lets us know where you reside. Let us know what side you actually take. Because when you make a comment like this to say, oh, you're a foundational black American through your mother's side, I'm trying to find his other comment, and then you see a comment like this. See, certain people have a dual mindset. There's a certain duality, and they have a very myopic view of not only themselves because they're straddling the fence. They're straddling the fence because their mom is FBA and their father is an African immigrant, or their father is FBA and their mother's an African immigrant. And they have this duality mindset that they're both, but they tend to lean one way or another. Where if you're not understanding your mother's side of history and understand the diversity and the divisiveness of America towards Black Americans, then I already know where you reside, brother. I know where you reside. Let me move on.
For the same people who are oppressing the African Americans in the United States, the same people, our own leaders in Africa, are also oppressing us. You know, these people in the United States, these Black Africans who think like this, they just think the same as some of our leaders here right now who are working with these Western powers to oppress the Black peoples in general. So I said, it's time for you Africans, you know, who thinks like this, to come on the table, to know that African Americans are our family members.
I feel like a lot of
that was a real powerful clip. Shout out goes out to these brothers. Understanding what's going on here in America with Black Americans and how they benefit from coming over here. At least they are acknowledging it. At least they are acknowledging it. Because this speaks for itself. You guys can receive Social Security, and we have to be damn near dead to receive it. Let me move on. Because, family, I still have a little bit to cover here. I do. Because there's a lot of things we have to understand about all of these benefits and how they despise us, even though these same benefits are by the blood of our people. Because one website said that Black immigrants, they can't get Pell Grants, but when you look into some of the Section 202 and FA and all these things, they can get Pell Grants. They can get subsidized loans. Because think about it like this. Like the Cal Grants in California or the Tuition Assistance Program, also known as TAP in New York, for undocumented immigrants, there's DACA, that's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which provides access to state tuition rates and some financial aid opportunities at public colleges and universities. What about the DREAM Act? Because in some states, this opens the door for Black immigrants to attend college at a fraction of the cost. Black Americans are paying the full price. Again, Black immigrants tend to, they attend college at a fraction of the cost, while Black Americans are paying the full price. You want to start a business? You want to start a business? There are grants and loans available, as the brother stated, specifically for immigrant communities, like those through the Minority Business Development Agency, and even microloans from organizations like the Refugee Investment Fund. And let's not forget that some cities, shout out to Chicago, aka Illinois, often offer special immigrant programs to cover all sorts of utility costs, because Black immigrants can get help with water, heating, electricity bills. When the last time the government paid your utility bills, unless you was in Section 8? And I bet you that Section 8 line is even longer, because there's a lot of immigrants on Section 8s now. But when is the last time the government said, you know what, we're going to come out and we're going to help you with your water, we're going to help you with your heating, we're going to help you with your electric bill? Black American? Hell no. But they get those benefits, while Black Americans, while foundational Black Americans are left wondering why their lives are getting cut off. And I know, because they didn't pay the bill. I got you. I'm not oblivious. But they benefit from civil rights, which our people have laid the groundwork for many of the programs. Because it was our family who put their lives on the line, protesting and marching, so we today and our children, and yes, even Black immigrants, could walk through doors that we kicked open. See, they didn't have to come over here and die for anything, family. Oh, no, 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 no. They didn't have to come over here and struggle for anything, family. But the one thing that some of them, I'm not stating all, I'm talking about the black immigrant tether class. They're walking on the backs of black Americans. Literally. We're the ones who kicked open the door. Now, what do we hear for some of these black immigrants? Yeah, we hear the divisive rhetoric like, we're smarter than you guys because we have, ding, 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 more degrees. How did you pay for those degrees? Oh, well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the financial aid. We don't want to talk about the grants that we get and special funds that colleges get for special aid. No, we don't want to talk about that's the reason why we have all these degrees. Yeah, not the Nigerians. They have more degrees than the black Americans. Why? Talking about y'all niggas broke. Yeah, because we're not getting government assistance. You're getting our tax dollars to propel yourselves forward, tether class. What else do they say about us, family? Oh, everybody says this because we know this is a white supremacist trope. We're lazy. Oh, God, we're so lazy. Lord, how do we get anything done because we're so lazy? Because the black immigrant tether class come over here and they say, you know what? These black Americans have all these akatas. They have had all these opportunities. These careers had all these opportunities, but yet they're still poor. Look at me. I've been here 2 years and look at my house, 5,000 square feet. Look at my business. I got 3 businesses. We come here and within 2 years, we got things popping. We own businesses and we live in bigger houses. So let's break it down. Yeah, some of that is true. Many black immigrants, you know. Yeah. They come over here and they start businesses or they achieve upward mobility faster than some of us. That's true. But here's what they don't talk about. First, black Americans and our ancestors fought for the very civil rights that made it possible for any immigrant to have opportunities in America. If it weren't for foundational black Americans, segregation, Jim Crow, and racist policies will still be in full effect. How would you guys survive if segregation and Jim Crow was still in effect? You wouldn't. So you're welcome. There wouldn't be a seat at the damn table for black immigrants. The freedom rides, the sit-ins, and the court battles, all of that came from descendants of enslaved black Americans fighting for every single scrap of our progress. Second, they don't talk about the structural disadvantages that black Americans have faced for generations. And when we're talking about generations, we're talking about hundreds of years, not decades. Hundreds of years, like the Homestead Act of 1862. You know, the one where the government gave away millions of acres of land to white Americans for free? For free? Oh, you guys don't remember that? Okay. Well, if you don't trust my word, then maybe you trust someone who's more notable.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress.
Family, I just realized that I was on mute. My apologies. Thank you for letting me know. Because there's some things I really want to point out here. Because when we look at the amount of support, because many black immigrants come here, which is true, and start businesses or they achieve upward mobility faster than some black Americans. But here's what they don't talk about. Oh, no. They don't talk about this, family. They don't talk about what they have received from the government, because Black Americans, our ancestors fought for the very civil rights that made it possible for anyone, any immigrant, to have opportunities in America. What do we hear from Black immigrants? We hear divisive rhetoric like, we're smarter, we have more degrees. Well, how did you get those degrees? Oh, look at the charts. Black immigrants in DC and Atlanta, they have more degrees than Black Americans. How did you pay for all those degrees? Well, we ain't gonna talk about that. Oh, there's special funds for you. There's special grants for you. There's special aid for you where Black Americans have to pay straight out of pocket. Every now and again, they'll get a little financial aid. Every now and again, they give a little bit of financial aid. So you don't even have a school debt. But that's some of the divisive rhetoric. We're smarter. We have more degrees. We work harder than Black Americans because the white supremacist trope, you're lazy. We come over here with a purpose. And what they say, you know what? These Akatas, these Jareers, these Black Americans, they have had all these opportunities, but yet they're still poor. We come here and within 2 years, we own businesses and live in bigger houses. They live in little shanty houses, 1,400 square feet. My house is 5,000 square feet. I got 3 restaurants. And yes, family, some of that is true. It is what it is. Many Black immigrants do come here and start businesses, and they achieve, mobility through corporations and businesses faster than some of us. But here's what they don't talk about. First, Black Americans, our people have fought for civil rights that made it possible for them to have these opportunities. Because if it wasn't for Black Americans, segregation, Jim Crow, racist policies will still be in full effect. There wouldn't be a seat at the damn table for Black immigrants. So you're welcome. If it wasn't for the freedom rides and the sit-ins and the court battles, all of that came from the descendants of Black Americans. We have fought for every scrap of progress. So you're welcome. And secondly, they don't talk about the structural disadvantages that we have faced for generations. A generation is 100 years. So generations for hundreds of years, like the Homestead Act of 1862. You know, the one where the government gave away millions of acres of land to white Americans for free. Millions of acres of land to white Americans for free, excluding us. Must I go into redlining? But before I go into redlining, let's hear from someone who is more honorable, more notable than me, because maybe I'm just speaking crazy man rhetoric. So I wonder who else knows about all these millions of acres of land that was given to white people, thus the reason why they are top of the food chain here in America.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. Which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming.
So we understand what the hell is going on. They're doing the same thing where they exclude foundational Black Americans from benefits while they give it to other groups. They say, oh no, we've given Black people money. What type of Black people? Are they American? Well, yeah. What generation American are they? And where are they from? And what's their name? Where are their parents from? Oh, when you start to peel back the onion, you start to understand a little bit deeper. Because when we speak about redlining, that didn't just happen back in the day. It has long lasting effects on home black ownership, where we had to move, where our communities were divided. And even till this day, they just renamed gentrification. It's still redlining. Some apartment buildings that my aunt used to live in Southeast DC, where she was paying roughly, this was back in the day, it's about 10, 15 years ago, back in the day. She was paying roughly anywhere between $800 to $1,200. They made everyone move out in roughly in a timeline of around 3 years. And now all those apartments are condos. So they're just cute apartments. And if you look at some of the pricing of those condos today, we're talking about anywhere from $3,000 and up. So it's still happening today. Because we all understand that one of the parts of wealth building in the United States of America is owning a home. But can you own a home right now if you already don't have one? Have your property tax went up? Have your local tax went up? But meanwhile, Black immigrants, they come over here and benefit from loans and grants that were built off the backs of foundational Black Americans, because loans our families couldn't even qualify for. Don't take my word for it. Didn't the African gentleman in the clip say that, family? When we look at the Fair Housing Act of 1968, foundational Black Americans had to fight for that too. But yet many of us are still being denied home loans at a very disproportionate rate. They say we're smarter. That's what the Black immigrant, we're smarter than you guys. We're more hardworking. Really? Come on, let's be real. They're benefiting from a design system to uplift immigrants in ways that Black Americans don't get. That is the very heart of it all. That is the uncomfortable truth. Our government is more willing to support Black Americans than they are to support Black Americans who built this nation. You know why? I'll just give you one of the fears. They know that Black immigrants won't buck bad. Let me say that again. They know that Black immigrants won't buck bad, especially if they're not a citizen. If they just got their green card, if they over here illegally, if they over here on a visa, they know you're going to work your ass off and you're not going to buck bag, even if something happens to you on the job. They know this because they know, well, if I buck bag here in America, they're going to send my ass back to Africa. And since we didn't create opportunities in our homeland and we over here eating off the backs of foundation Black Americans, I'm just going to shut up, do my job, and put my head down. And this is the same government, family, that they can't deliver on reparations for us. But yet they have no problem setting aside resources for immigrants because it's politically and economically beneficial. See, one thing that we have yet to say, we fought for them. Let me say it again. We fought for them. We stood in solidarity with our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean and Africa, pushing for Pan-Africanism, pushing for international Black unity. But what do we get in return? We're looked down on. We're called lazy and unmotivated. No one talks about how the systematic oppression, the trauma, and the economic exclusion that foundational Black Americans have faced for centuries have shaped the current reality that we live in. They don't talk about how many foundational Black Americans are still living under the shadow of generational poverty, while Black immigrants are giving access to opportunities that we, the descendants of Black foundational Black Americans, can get, that we can't get. It's a betrayal, plain and simple. So when Black immigrants throw around these divisive claims, remember the truth. FBA family, remember the truth. It's not that we're lazy. is that they have been handed opportunities that we had to fight and that we're still fighting to have access to. And until FBAs receive reparations and full recognition that we deserve, this imbalance, this divisiveness between Black immigrants and foundational Black Americans will remain. The executive order of delineation of foundational Black Americans from the Black diaspora will be indefinite. Because what they don't understand, that the same system that oppresses us uplifts them. And we're not here to hate. No. We're here to speak truth to power, because we have to honor our ancestors. We have to honor our forefathers. That is what we have to do. So when I look at a lot of the information that's presented here, I'd rather go to accounts that people can speak to. I think that's what we need to do. Listen to this.
You see, Africans, that's why we came here in waves. Now there are generations, but Africans were able to have better lives, to be able to also help and support their families back home by coming here. But the mission is different. The mission for the generation of our parents, for either why they came here or sent us here, that doesn't apply, because it's a totally different world.
It's vastly different.
My whole purpose of not being in the US, or why I even want to be successful here, is not of a place for where I was like, oh, so that I can send back money home and support. You know what I'm saying?
I always say this, and I think this is true. I think that there's no other place in the world that you can take an idea from conception or inception to implementation as fast as you can in the US. And if you realize that,
Agreed.
If you realize that and use it to your advantage, that's ultimately buying you that ticket to go and do the same thing back home. Because the biggest bottleneck to...
And that's the problem, brother. They're not taking the opportunity. They're not taking the funds. They're not taking their success. As the young gentleman stated before, they're not sending money back home. They're flossing, they're stunting here in America. As the lady right here say, hey, fuckers, I wish Africa heals so the diaspora of descendants of Africa could run home to be successful and safe. The world is upside down. We are running to your oppressor. You are running to your colonizer. Think about that. Think about that. Listen to what he's saying.
Starting back home, besides corruption and politics.
Yes, the bureaucracy, all of that.
The bureaucracy is going to be your financial, your capital, right?
And also education and skill set to do what you want to
do. What you want to do.
Yes.
So if you're able to build all those things and acquire all those things here, and you understand why you're doing it, it's a straight shot back home. Because when you go back home, you're not doing that on a small mom and pop shop scale.
No,
you're doing that large scale, right?
You see, Africans, that's why we came.
So if they're taking the money, if they're taking the revenue, if they're taking everything they built in America and going back to Africa, why isn't Africa built up? And again, not to be divisive, okay? And we're talking about the majority of the different groups that come over here. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay? Because like I said, I don't want to be divisive here, family. And I was going to go over this information earlier. I done read all of this. I'm not going to even go over it because this is about the amount of people that's over here from all these different African countries. But what I will do, I think it was a chart here that showed you what countries they're mostly coming from. And by the way, this data is back from 2019. So, and they broke it down by city. That says, roughly 1 million of Black immigrants, and they broke it down: New York City, Jamaicans, Haitians, Dominicans, Trinidadians, and then Miami is Haitians, Jamaicans, Cubans, And then when it comes to DC, Ethiopians, Nigerians, Jamaicans, Ghana, Boston, Haiti, Cape Verde, Jamaicans. So Jamaicans are the largest Black immigrant group in America. But as I was showing you guys some information later, is that there are other groups that have come over here. And as you can tell, I had a lot of things prepared for you guys, but I'm just not going to go over it. But I will give you the source of this. This is migrationpolicy.org. Again, this is migrationpolicy.org. And here's the title of this article. Okay. So you guys can go and research for yourself. I always like to cite my sources because I want people to fact check what I'm saying and that I'm not creating a narrative just by picking pieces out of the information that is provided. I hate to do that. Okay. I would hate to do that. But what I will do, there's a lot of comments and I will go over some of these, but at the same time, okay, if anybody would like to comment and or join, I'm going to put an invite link. And with this invite link inside of the chat, you can join with or without your video. It's your choice, but that would be in the chat. But I want to point out something that our sister said, American Freedmen, okay, American Freedmen, U.S. Freedmen, as well as Foundational Black American Shabazz. They come here supposedly penniless and somehow get $1 million liquor licenses. And as the brother said, and I closed it down, but as the brother said in that video clip, if you guys want to hear that video clip, just rewind the tape, how they are approved for loans while we are denied loans. And this has been happening for quite some time. And people would say, oh, is your debt to income ratio? That's what it is. Is your debt to income ratio? You're like, well, I have a great credit score. Well, is your debt to income ratio? Well, I have my net worth is 500K and I only have 20K in debt. And they kind of separate your mortgage from your business loan, right? You have to connect your business account to NAV and they'll create a business score by Dun and Bradstreet. Yeah. I know about it. But nonetheless, that's what they tell us. So the sister's pointing out a very stark difference in the experience in loans being provided, okay? And loans that's being provided. Also, we have our sister 22 here. It states that this crazy part about my family history is that my other grandfather, Elijah Rice, was a descendant of the founder of the Marlboro Mass Colony that broke away from the original Mass Bay Colony. Wow. So she has a stark difference, okay? So we do have some people in the back channel I'm going to bring up here. I'm going to bring you guys, I'm going to add you guys to the stage. Let's have some decorum here. Let's go with Z first. Go ahead, Z. Z, you're up. Z61. I'm going to call you Z61@gmail.com. That's your name on here. Go ahead, Z. All right. Z is sleep at the wheel. I'm going to remove you from the stage. Now we have Mike's opinion. What's on your mind, Mike?
Yo, what up, bro? I just want to firstly say I'm an outsider here, but I come with respect. I'm Nigerian, so I just wanted to say I kind of found this stuff like 2-3 days ago, and I thought it was fucking crazy. I think one of the first things I seen was African Americans and FBA and ADOS arguing because my people and other Caribbean people and African people were saying that you guys have no culture. And I'm Nigerian, so when I heard Burna Boy say that shit, I was never a fan of his because I just always thought like it's kind of weird. Like when I came to New York at 3 years old, like a guy like Burna Boy, our parents would have never let us listen to him. And then I travel the world now. So like when I came back to the United States, I've been traveling outside the United States for almost like 5 years now. I've seen that Afro beats got hot, but what I noticed was that they stopped dressing corny, as you guys would say, like Puerto Ricans, these people that jack your culture don't know how to dress and shit. The guy has big ass earrings. He has like all this shit that our parents would never allow that shit. And when I came back to the States, I noticed that all Afrobeats artists were like dressing like that. I'm like, yo, that's some fucking crazy shit. But then they got the audacity to say that you steal their culture. You know what I mean? And then like motherfuckers talking about they start hip hop and like breakdancing and shit. And I from the outside, I remember I'm saying I'm from the outside looking in. So I think there's this guy that was saying like, I mean, Black Americans don't even fuck with like breakdance, and that's the truth. That shit is corny. Like you guys see it as corny nowadays, and they're talking like because you guys don't do it anymore and things like that, that it wasn't your culture and all this stupid shit. And Fat Joe saying 50-50. When I grew up in Brooklyn, all there was reggaeton and like the Latino artists, whatever, they stay over there doing that shit. I never, when I couldn't believe it. I never thought that would come across my computer screen, like that black people, black Americans at FBA. Then
Mike, let me ask you a quick question, Mike. Do you believe that foundational Black Americans have culture?
Me personally, I've been like, this shit just came across my screen some time ago, right? Because I fuck with you guys. I fuck with this guy named Ramila Mayer, and you know he has like a pretty strong opinion on like reparations and all that shit. So I never looked too deep into it. But I mean, I was actually thinking about making a YouTube channel about this, right? Because how can people say that Black Americans don't have culture, but like everybody steals from them? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like literally, I'm Nigerian, bro, and Nigerian music, like when it started years ago, I don't even know if it was called Afrobeats or it was just called Nigerian music. When you had like Whiskey, I'm talking like 15, almost 20 years ago. You know, nobody listened to that shit, and the music videos look so fucking weirdly computeristic and all this shit. And like, you know, our parents would never let you have tattoos, say my nigga, wear earrings. So our artists didn't have that. It was all lover boy shit. And now we got motherfuckers, you know, or you guys got motherfuckers, you know, dressing like you, my nigga. You know, I seen a video of Burner Boy.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a very vast culture, and it's very catchy.
Nah, bro. Like bro. Like you guys don't have a very bad culture. That's just
no. I said very vast, very vast, very vast.
Vast.
But
Yeah,
Mike, I have some other people. Mike, I do appreciate you telling the truth, brother. So I'm gonna put you down back in the goo, baby. I'm gonna have some other people come.
Another day. Keep doing your thing.
Your contribution, though. I appreciate your contribution.
No doubt.
All right, Mr. G. I believe Mr. G, you're up next. What's on your mind, brother?
Good evening, fam. Hey, yeah, I wish you had left the brother up here. I would have dialogued with him. I see what he's saying, and I've heard those claims before. By the way, I'm sure you can and probably will hear my accent. Sometimes it come out much stronger, sometimes it's not. I'm Haitian. So that claim he just made, I feel like there's so much nuance in this conversation, and that's my problem. Do you believe other people around the world like they love using American product like iPhone? Like I know that sounds silly, but when people say, "Oh, look at them," you know, they're dressing like us, they cosplaying us. I'm like, it's the most influential culture. What do you expect? People in other countries, they want to learn English. Why not the Indian language?
I mean, Mr. G, what's the point you're trying to make here?
The point I'm trying to make is you cannot be the most influential culture that you want to be the most influential culture, and then you get mad at people that, you know, they show love and respect to that culture. Now I know that there are some disrespect that goes on and whatnot. Yes, but the whole point that sometimes people are making regarding, you know, the cultures being cosplay or they're trying to be us, yada yada blah. Blah. I feel like that's a bit crazy.
Read the comment below. I think "Tell the Truth, Shame the Devil" has point out a very great difference here, because I understand what you're stating, and we're not speaking about everyone. There are some people outside of Black American culture that honors the culture, but we have some people who try to divide the culture, stating that, oh, we had 50% in creating this, or we had 30%, or you got
the hip hop conversation. Yeah, I've heard it recently.
Right.
Yeah, and Tariq Nasheed put out I guess a documentary or whatnot.
Yeah, and microphone check.
Yeah. I'm only 39, so I can't dispute any of the claims that most of these people are making or whatnot. But it is a melting pot. I just don't know. First of all, I support, and specifically as a Haitian, I'm sure, I don't know how old you are. I'm sure you know your history, world history. We were the first one. We did what we did. The first motherfuckers that say "fuck you, white men," and kill them, right? And they made us pay for that. Until this day, we're paying for that.
Absolutely.
I support reparation. I have no problem with reparation, but I feel like some of the claims are being generalistic. Like, oh, they hate us, or they didn't. Like, yeah, there are some people that say dumb shit, but to appropriate that to everybody, I feel like that's not. Again, as I like to say,
okay, hold on, slow down for a second. What do you mean by that last comment?
There are some people that say dumb stuff. Like, you see, people. Here's a claim that everybody got nowadays. The claim is that, they call us lazy. Immigrants think we're lazy. And I had asked the brother, I'm like, how many immigrants have called you lazy? He couldn't even tell me that a personal experience he's had with an immigrant that called him lazy.
Well, you understand a lot of the vitriol and divisiveness is really spewed online because you have virtual barriers that protect people. Because if these things were said in person, then it'd be more fisticuffs than it would be talking.
I agree. It's.
Hey, Mr. G, no disrespect, brother. I have somebody else.
No. Go ahead, man. I'm way too nuanced with this conversation. You're probably looking for somebody that's a little bit more argumentative and a bit, toxic.
No, not at all. I'm just giving everybody a chance to speak. But thank you for contributing. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yep. All right. Angie, what's on your mind? You got to take yourself off mute. I know there's no mute on here, but we cannot hear you on this side. Angie? Okay, mute me in the background. I can hear myself in the background. Angie, are you there? I'm gonna give you about 5 seconds, sis. I see you're trying to come in. I don't see you on mute, but we cannot hear your sound. Chat, can anyone hear her on their side? Can anyone hear Angie? All right, she dropped off. Maybe she having technical difficulties. We saw that Chick Oo was in here, but I believe he left. I was gonna bring him up. Jacqueline says no, that she couldn't hear Angie. But again, family, thank you all for joining me here this evening. Again, I'm gonna wait about a good 10 to 15 seconds in case somebody else has some questions or comments that you guys want to add to the conversation. Please go ahead and drop into the back channel. You can add yourself with the invite link. I'll put that inside of the chat one more time, and you can add yourself with or without your video. And there you go. I'll give you guys about 15 seconds to see if anybody else have any comments or anything they want to contribute or debate on the topic at hand. And while they're doing that, I also want to show you guys something very quickly while you guys deciding if you want to join here. Let me show you some of the things I was talking about that a lot of illegal immigrants receive. As you state here, that undocumented immigrants may be eligible for college assistance through state and private scholarships. They can receive state financial aid. And if you see, they listed certain states like Texas up here, they can apply for private scholarships that's only available to undocumented students. They have institutional aid, they have FAFSA. So there is all of this money that is allotted to illegal immigrants to go to school for free, while foundational Black Americans have to pay, and we get maybe a couple of thousand off through financial aid as well. But nonetheless, I see there's a lot of people in the room. because someone stated from Rumble that we are deporting millions of them. Okay, Angie is back. Let's give Angie one more chance. Let's give Angie one more chance. All right, Angie, what's on your mind, sis? Angie is still having technical difficulties. Shout out to Lewis Knows. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Can you hear me now?
There you go, sis. I can hear you. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you so much for having me up. I really appreciate it. I was listening, and it's a great conversation, and just following up on how we got here with the tethers. I would say I'm like a Gen X person, and I kind of agree with how we with Tariq Nasheed on kind of how we got here, because when I was growing up in the 90s and 80s and in the early 2000s, there were a lot of immigrants coming here to Chicago, to the North Side, and to our communities from Haiti, Belize, Jamaica, all of those, Honduras, a lot of Caribbean areas. And the Africans were going to Uptown, and they were creating businesses and stuff and moving in. And it created a lot of discombobulation in the community with the culture clash, because we didn't understand we had different cultures. We thought we was all the same. I think it took Black Americans a long time to see that the Caribbeans and the Africans had a different perspective, because I came out of an era of segregation. So in the 70s, we were just now being integrated to the rest of the world. At least in a lot of enclaves that we were in. Even in Chicago, yeah, they say we was on the South Side, but we were limited on the South Side by boundaries. And I'm older today. Somebody told me they lived in Bridgeport, and I couldn't believe it, because I'm still traumatized from years ago when we couldn't go to Bridgeport. And I'm not trying to make that a present thing, but some of us still have those lingering memories of those days of segregation. So when we was developing our culture, we did not realize how global it was going. Like the young man before, he said, you want to have the greatest culture, what do you expect? People are going to copy you. I don't think we were sitting around trying to have the greatest culture. We was just scraping and scrimping, doing the best we could. And the culture we had created the greatness, which was the community culture, rather it revolved around a church or a particular religion like the nation.
Now, Angie, why do you think there is a division between Black Americans and African immigrants and Caribbean immigrants? Why do you think there's a division there? Because
I woke up one day and they stopped talking about Black American history in a positive way that I grew up. Christopher Addicts and all of the stories we had, and Black on Black love, and all of the images we grew up with. And it turned into Hood Rats and World Star, and it turned ugly and twerking, and the Black woman image crashed like thunder to the ground. She had no more virtue. She was just whatever they named her. And the whole image changed from 1975, when I was going to Easter Sunday school, when I was going to Sunday school on Easter in my Easter dress and my shoes and my petticoat, to today, where it does seem like we don't have any culture, because the culture we had was clashed with, and we stopped doing what we was doing because of that clash. So
well let me just add this, and I wasn't going to come on camera, but I slightly will very quickly. We've always have culture, and culture is just not dance, music, or food, but it's also innovations as well as the inventions that you contribute to society. And we've been creating things even in the midst of oppression as far as slavery. Now, a lot of that has been lost of the worldview of what culture really is. People think that culture is just the way certain traditional clothing, or you have a certain traditional dance, or you have traditional foods, where we had to create all of those things out of slavery. But we've been having a culture for a very long time, and we're still building from that. But go ahead.
Agreed. And I think, and I may have not expressed it correctly, but when I said I used to go to the church on Easter Sunday in that outfit, that tradition of that culture came with food, it came with sewing clothes, it came with needlework, it came with midwifery, it came with all of the things that we had to do because, like I said before, at that time we were very separated. So we birthed our own babies. We made our own clothes. I remember sitting there watching my auntie, my grandma, and other people make clothes. We made our own clothes, and they were innovative. Came out, with the afros, and they were making their little clothes back then, and they were making their clothes to go to prom. That was our culture. Yes, it was very creative and innovative. And it did come with those things that you mentioned, but it wasn't just a dance or a song. It was what we did every day. And so what I'm saying is that I'll say this. When there was a culture clash when my dad joined the Nation of Islam and my granny was a Catholic. There was an argument in the house. The house said, and then people stopped practicing some of those cultural practices that we used to practice, which included midwifery. We started going to the doctor, which included herbal root care. We started taking pharmaceuticals. We slowly started coming away from the culture when we went outside of ourselves. And I'm not saying integration was a bad thing, maybe, but we no longer looked into ourselves for the things that we needed. And I think that that's when things started to fall apart, and it started to look like we didn't have any culture, and people started making caricatures of who they thought we were, because we stopped celebrating the things that were important to us, not because of that day, but because we had to go to grandma's house to eat the food, to meet grandpa who's coming from out of town, to see Uncle Willie who's coming from Mississippi, to see Aunt Barbara who's coming from Ohio. So they was all just...
I get what you're saying, sis, that the system in which we live, especially mass media, have promoted the debauchery of our culture, the lowest form of our culture, to the forefront into the world, where people think we don't have a culture, but thus we have a very rich culture. And a lot of people that come over here that look like us don't do the same work and research that we do as far as history and reading that we do. We know a lot of their culture, and we've never really disrespected their culture.
Right.
Now, Angie, sis, I'm gonna have to send you down, family. I'm about to close up here, but I just want to thank the sister Angie very quickly for contributing to what she was stating before. But family, a lot of this division, believe it or not, as Mr. G was stating, there's a lot of nuances to it. Don't forget that a lot of Africans, not as much as Caribbeans, come over here with a tribal mindset. They can be from the same country, but they're very divisive, and they're divided amongst themselves, even though they're the same countrymen. Right. And I don't want to point out any particular African country, but when I traveled to Ghana, when I traveled to South Africa, as well as Kenya, there's many of these sort of tribes that they have some of the same traditions, and some of them differ. They may have different dialects, but they had all these differences where they operate in tribalism. So they operate in a separation. And when they came to America, they still operate, some of them, and they don't want to be joined in. And actually taught because of the depiction and the projections that the American news media and white supremacist ideology that has been pretty much permeated to a point where they believe this this is who and what we are all the time. And this is vastly untrue. Just as well, if I go to some of these countries and I see that majority of the country are living impoverished, I don't come back over to America and disrespect those folks in Ghana. I don't come back over to America and disrespect those rioters in South Africa, because when I was in Ghana, Ghanaians are some of the most beautiful, politest people that you will ever meet. I remember, if you guys are ever going to Ghana, reach out to me, email me, however you're going to do it, and I will give you the number to my driver. His name is Eric. Eric was phenomenal. He drove us absolutely everywhere. He didn't overcharge us. And the one thing I can speak up for Eric, who is Ghanaian, he was very protective of us. He knew when people were trying to cheat us, he would speak. I believe one of the largest languages in Ghana was three. I believe that's the name of the language. And he would speak to them in the language like, no, don't overcharge them. You're charging them more than you charge the Chinese people. And guess what? The Chinese people was in Ghana too. But yeah, family, I don't want any of our African brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, as well as the African continent, think that we are trying to be divisive. No, we are executing an executive order of delineation because of the vitriol and the disrespect that when you guys come over here and you feed and you leech off, and this is talking to the tether class, of the things that we have done and the things that we are still doing to push for equality and these so-called opportunities, economic opportunities that you guys benefit from. There's no support for foundational Black Americans on you guys' side. That is why the Pan-Africanism movement has died. Okay, the only one on that ship is probably Dr. Umar Johnson. He probably got a couple of people rowing the boat. And shout out goes out to Dr. Umar Johnson, one of the most intelligent brothers that you'll ever listen to or ever meet. So shout out to him. Nothing to be disrespected to the brother, but he's definitely one of the few Black scholars that's on the Pan-Africanism movement, because again, we have executed an executive order delineation because we're tired of the disrespect. We're tired of the divisiveness that you guys have, whether it be on the job, virtually, in these quote unquote social media rooms. We're just tired of it. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So again, I see there's still a lot of people in the room. We got the original war robot strategist say white racists used to tell FBAs to go back to Africa. Absolutely. And it's never hurt my feelings, but I know it hits different for an actual African to hear that. Absolutely. We got our brother FBA Strong. He in here making a lot of comments, but I thank you all here for joining me this evening. I wasn't even expecting to come on camera, but nonetheless, I'm here. You guys have a great and wonderful day. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for contributing to Blacklogic. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, if you like what you hear, you like the discussion, please hit the subscribe button. If you don't hit the subscribe button. If you like what you hear, hit the thumbs up. If you don't like what you heard, hit the thumbs down. You know that I don't care really. But nonetheless, great discussion, family. I see you guys on Friday. You guys have a good one.